y'all? Welcome to round one of the Texas League Maverick Cup. As the P1 cars come off the final turn, they'll be set to take the green flag here, and 10 seconds later the GTE field will come around the turn to take their green flag. Hope y'all don't mind. I thought I would chat a little bit this season during the race broadcast. I probably won't talk for the whole hour of this race, but thought I would chat a little bit about what I see going on, maybe talk about the league a little bit. Hold on to it, Scott. I haven't seen the race yet. Wow, I haven't seen the race yet other than from the cockpit. So I'm gonna watch the race replay here with you guys and see what we pick up. So like I said, this is the new Maverick Cup featuring the LMP1 cars and then also the GTE cars in a multi-class series that will run every other week on the Lone Star Sports Car GT3 series off weeks. So being a new series with some new cars, I didn't expect a huge turnout, especially with COTA being the first race of the season, but I am hoping by the third race of the season, when we start getting to tracks like Spa and Road America, we start seeing a few more guys join. Would definitely love to see a bigger P1 field. See Paul's off to a great start there. I think he turned a 147 flat in qualifying, opposed to my 148.1. So he'll be in a class of his own this race. Myself and Scott Burke will be left to battle for P2. Paul and Scott, I believe, said they picked the Audi R18s because they are right-hand drive, and you could see more of the blind apexes here at COTA than you could from the Porsche, which is left-hand drive. Here's a shot of the GTE field. It looks like Aaron just went around Larry Ford for P2, and that'd be Joel way out ahead there, off to a great start for the GTEs. Can't even quite see him yet. I don't know if we've had a good shot of him out in front. Hold on to it, Clint. Clint's a new driver to the series last season. He joined us in the GT3 cars. And as he gets some more experience, he'll definitely get a little more sure-footed. I think he's doing a great job being a new driver to sim racing even. I had Scott here at the beginning of the race, all in my mirrors. I kept looking up, trying to see where he was at, where he was going. I was trying to run incident-free, but that's a tall chore at this track. Oh, that's what happened to Scott. I think he said in TeamSpeak, the left rear tire caught the left orange curbing and it sent him right into the wall. So I don't think I finished my point about the GT3 series. So that is still happening. Lone Star Sports Car Series with the GT3 cars are still running every other week. So they'll be up next Friday night at Laguna Seca. And then on their off weeks, this Maverick Cup series is slated for this season and next season to run LMP1s and GTE cars. This series will be hour-long races with rolling starts as opposed to the 45-minute standing starts in the GT3. And I see Greg's got some damage on the rear of that Ferrari. I'm not sure what happened to him there. Someone obviously got in the back of him. Those who watched last season will notice I've changed up the tickers a little bit. The top left box, the big one up there, will be a persistent top 10, always showing the top 10 with their gap, laps, lap times, and stops. And then the smaller 3-position box below it will show the driver who the camera is focused on, and then the driver immediately ahead and behind, along with the gaps to those cars. And then along the bottom, I've done a persistent top 3 with expanded information like sector times and such. Playing around with that, I don't know if I like it or not, so you may see that disappear as the season goes on. I'm just not sure if I like it yet. Now, when I saw Paul's car here in the race, I actually thought that was one of those camouflage liveries you see on the prototype cars that manufacturers put on to try to hide the lines. That is actually aluminum foil. When you get a closer look at it, it is a aluminum foil livery. So we'll talk a little bit about the new P1 cars. Those came out new this season in iRacing. It's the Audi R18 and the Porsche 919. These LMP1s ran in 2016. I believe they were retired last year. And they feature a cool hybrid energy recovery system. Under braking, the cars recharge a battery. The Porsche also has a recovery system where it recharges the battery from the turbo as well. So the Porsche, from acceleration and from braking, can recharge the battery. The Audi only has a braking recovery system, and it charges this battery that then can be used automatically or manually to power boost on the car, and then there's a limit to the amount of boost you can use per lap. Now, iRacing has obviously set it up to where you can, wow, that's a very wide line there, Larry. iRacing has set it up to where you can set it on automatic, and it does a pretty good job of using your allocated boost every lap, because what you don't want to do is have a lot of extra boost that you didn't use at the end of the lap, because that's time lost on the track. So the auto mode, I tried it out for most of this race. I ran in auto, and it worked pretty good. There were a few times where I had switched over to manual. Here's a shot for me. I had switched it over to manual just to play with it a little bit as we got spread out here after Scott here retired and Paul's obviously off ahead. I just played with it to kind of see what lap times I could get, what the difference was. It adds another complexity to the race, another thing that as a driver you have to manage and do when you're in manual mode anyway. You got to make sure that you're recharging the battery enough every lap that your battery's not dead, but at the same time you don't want it to be 100%, because under braking it feels like when you brake and that battery fills up and it can't charge anymore, you lose the energy recovery assistance of slowing that car down as you're braking. You have an added braking force as the system is recovering some of that energy to charge the battery. Well, once the battery's full, it stops doing it, and now you're fully using the mechanical brake pads to stop the car, and it's a weird feeling in the car under braking. Oh, this is Clint again. Noses it into the wall. Definitely a step up from the GT3 cars there, but like I said, a few more races and some practice laps, and he'll be a lot more sure-footed. He's done a real good job in the GT3 series last season, and I'm sure he'll be back again this season in GT3 as well. But as I was saying, under braking, if that battery fills 100% up, you stop recovering energy, and your braking effort diminishes. Vice versa, if you use all your battery on exit of say you're exiting a turn and you're using the battery is being deployed to assist you off the corner, that is assistance on the front two wheels. The rear wheels are being driven by the engine, the front wheels are being driven by this energy recovery system, this battery. And when you use all that energy and you're exiting the turn, you no longer have that power being applied to the front wheels. And that changes the balance of the car. Wow, that's a cool shot. It changes the balance and handling of the car. And all of a sudden the rear end becomes a lot more free as you don't have the fronts pulling you anymore. So you also want to make sure you don't run out of battery either. So in manual mode, you just got to kind of pay attention to it. In auto mode, I felt like it did a really good job. There were maybe a couple instances where I either had too much battery. I don't know if maybe an instance or two where I ran out. But for the most part, the auto mode did a pretty good job. So one thing drivers need to be aware of here in this series, both this series and in the Lone Star Sports Car series, is there is an incident cap of 17 incidents. And you basically get an incident, you get incident points for car contact with a wall, or leaving the racing surface, whether it be on the grass or going off into the paved runoff areas. You rack up these incident points in. Once you hit 17 or more, you're disqualified from the race. So as these drivers run wide, they're racking these like that, although that he may have been fine there. As you rack these incidents up, you run the risk of getting disqualified. So that's one thing the drivers also need to pay attention to in this league. You see Paul hit that apex really good there. I noticed when I tested that Audi sitting on the right-hand side, definitely helped in seeing. Turn 1 was one of those. Turn 11, the hairpin on the backside of the course, is another one. Sitting on the right-hand side of the car allowed you to see that apex a lot easier. In the Porsche that I'm racing, it's completely blind. You're just kind of picking a point to turn in and turning in and hoping you hit the apex properly. You don't cut it too much or you hit one of those orange curbs, or you lose a lot of time by taking it really wide. I love that shot there on the dash. That was one of the updates iRacing had this season as well, was updating the remote cars and the replays like this typically showed the car in reverse at all times, and they've updated it to where it now shows gear and RPMs, and I think as well as lap times are working in the cars that have that information displayed on the dash. That adds a little more to the sim. Something that I liked. Cool to see. In other words, it used to be you would only see that info on the player who hosted the replay. I think it was right around this point in the race when I realized we'd only been racing for 15 minutes that I said something in TeamSpeak about I thought we were halfway at this point. There was so much work driving that car around the circuit. I thought we were halfway through the race, and I finally get a chance to look up to see the time remaining. Oh, there you can see I couldn't see the curb there on that left-hander in the hairpin. Caught a lot of that curb trying to go around Aaron. But as I was saying, I really thought we were halfway through the race, and I look up at the time and see that we still got 45 minutes to go. Now, in multi-class racing like this, there's got to be give and take amongst the classes. The faster class needs to realize, in this case, Joel and Aaron, they're racing here. They're less than 2 seconds apart, and you're not trying to ruin their race. So you're trying to find spots to pick your way through. But at the same time, these guys need to realize that, well, I'm obviously catching Paul is going to be a tall order, but I'm trying to race too, and I can't be held up for 5 seconds every lap behind these cars. Behind the slower cars, so when I get an opportunity to get alongside, I'm going to do that. And I try to pick the areas where I can get alongside and make the pass through a turn. I try not to push the issue or force them too far offline. Usually what you want is the slower class to stay online and the faster class will go offline to make the move. So I'm trying to make sure I give them room and that I can make the pass without impeding either of us too much. So as I was talking about the standings boxes there on the left, you'll notice for the multi-class, the position numbers are color-coded, and that matches along the top the time remaining, laps remaining, and then the SOF indicators. You'll see P1 is red and GTE is green, and then in the position indicators, again, P1 is the red numbers, Paul, myself, and Scott, and then the 6 GTE cars are green. So that'll kind of help differentiate the classes and the standings there. Okay, Aaron's closed this up to almost half a second. Gotta see, can Aaron draft up to the back of Joel here and make the move into 12. Got the long back stretch into a hard braking zone with a left-hander here. Couldn't quite get close enough there. Hey, I just noticed I went purple through Sector 2 here, down there at the bottom. The green means personal best through that sector, and purple means the best time so far in the race through that sector. So a couple personal best and a overall best so far. The sector times look pretty close. I'm wondering, is Paul in traffic maybe? So over there, the last lap is blue, and he's the first one across the line for this lap. Blue laps just mean the fastest lap recorded for that previous lap. As I get to the line, we'll see what my time is. He ran a 1:48.0. That's quicker than what I ran in qualifying. Yeah, 1:48.5, so one of the cool stats I do like is down there at the bottom is the top speed. That is the fastest speed recorded in the session. I do believe there's a lap or two where I used quite a bit of boost on the backstretch, and I'd be curious to see just how fast I got up to. I know in practice I was capable of hitting 200 miles an hour down that back straight. All right, another shot here. Aaron's even closer this time. Joel running to the left just a little bit to be a little defensive. Oh, it looks like Scott Burke's back on track. I see him there in the standings, no longer on pit road. I didn't realize he came back out. He must have got the car repaired and headed back out for some laps. So as I was saying earlier about the speed, you can use, you don't have to just have it on auto mode for the boost in the P1 cars. You can use it manually as well as a push to pass type button. Now again, there is a maximum amount of charge you can use per lap, and that resets every lap. But you can also manage it yourself and use it on demand. And that was one thing I also played with with the auto deploy mode. I still manually use the button from time to time, and the auto mode took that into account and did a good job of managing the energy for the rest of the lap. Looks like Paul making a pass on Larry there. And you saw there, sometimes you know, as a LMP1 driver, you gotta be mindful of where that GTE car is gonna track out at. And as a GTE driver, just need to be mindful of the blue flags and your relative box to see where other drivers are ahead and behind you. And sometimes maybe you lift a little to allow that car to go around the outside of you. And as you can see, Paul and Larry made it happen there. It's a teamwork sometimes, getting through the field and getting around each other. He's closed right up on him down the front stretch. Oh, as we cut over to Greg here, the only Ferrari in the field. There's a shot into one, and there's Burke back there. Oh, a mistake there from Joel, and Aaron slots on by, and here comes Burke around both of them. You know, the one nice thing about the LMP1 cars, I've raced in other series before, mainly with the HPD and GT1 series, where you have the GT1 cars and the HPD. Oh, nice move, Joel. Joel tried sliding up the inside there, but too much speed, locked it up, and slid straight on through. Aaron recognized that in his mirror, was able to hold back, allow Joel to slide through, and then do the over-under and come right back out ahead. But as I was saying, I've driven both the HPD, trying to get around GT1 cars. Oh, and I see Chris there took some damage going over those orange triangle pyramid curbs that you see. Those are no joke. Those things are big, and they will damage the car. But back to the HPD GT1 series. Those cars at some tracks, at a lot of tracks, and certain corners at a lot of tracks, they can be pretty even into and off of some of those corners because those GT1 cars are just so quick that sometimes, especially if you have really fast GT1 drivers with slower HPD drivers like myself, it can be a little difficult cutting through traffic and getting around. And there were times where I would either feel like I was holding up a GT1 car or vice versa when I drove the Corvette and would have slower HP drivers in front of me where they were holding me up once they got around me. The nice thing about these LMP1s, even a slow driver like myself, once we pass a GT car, we're gone. Those things are just, they're so quick. They're not really holding you up as a GT driver. They're not holding you up through the next few turns like has happened in some of the other series where the speed difference between the classes is closer. So we're halfway through the race here, and it actually looks like Aaron is starting to gap Joel here. Their best lap times are within a tenth of each other, tenth and a half. And Joel's hitting pit lane. So Joel's going to take the halfway strategy. He's halfway through the race, and now he's going to come in and add a little bit of fuel and come back out. We'll see how that strategy plays off for him. I know others like myself, we usually like to start on a full tank, which Joel may have started on a full tank, I'm not sure. Or maybe he short fueled, planning to pit halfway. But myself, I like to take a full tank and run it dry. It looks like Paul, Paul actually did the same thing. He's pitting at halfway. So a couple different strategies. You'll see, we see a couple guys pitting at halfway, and one in each class, and the others I suspect will stay out a little bit longer. Probably more towards running the tanks dry, and then stopping. So with Paul having taken a stop, you'll notice in the P3 standings there down at the bottom, there's a column titled lane and a column titled box. Lane is the amount of time he spent in between the cones on pit lane. Box is the amount of time he spent stopped inside of his box. So you can kind of compare to see how long drivers took both getting on and off pit lane and how much time in their box. I also like to use that during the race. I have a fourth monitor with this information on it. I like to use that to kind of judge whether these drivers took tires or no tires based on how long you stay in the pit box. And I believe at 30 seconds, Paul probably took tires. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when I experimented with taking tires or no tires, it was, I want to say 12 to 15 seconds slower to take tires, if I'm not mistaken. And that's due to the fact that in these cars, you fuel the car first. Once the car is full of fuel, then they change the tires. And I believe it's just 2 air guns for this series. And that just leads to slightly longer pit stop times. So now that Joel's made his stop, he's going to be keen on wanting to close that gap down. So he's currently at 40 seconds behind Aaron and P1 for the GTE class. We'll have to see here as we get closer and closer to Aaron's stop how much he can close that down and if he can come back out ahead. And here I come in for my stop. I ran this thing almost dry, so looks like I did what, maybe 2-3 laps more than Paul over 7 minutes over halfway. This will be a cool shot once we get the animated pit crews and you can actually see what's going on. For now, sometimes the replay director likes showing cars on pit lane. So you can see I spent 14.1 seconds in my box versus Paul's 30.4, and that's because I didn't take tires. But Paul had such a huge gap, he was able to take tires and still come back out ahead of me with a 15-second gap. You can see Greg really being mindful of those off-track incidents. I know I was close to being disqualified this race. I racked up so many. Well, here we're going to show me getting another one. But being mindful, especially here with 20 minutes left in the race, to yeah, and there I am getting another incident. Try not to get too many of those as you get close to getting disqualified. So you start giving up quite a bit of time sometimes when you overdrive a corner. And you don't want to go wide because you don't want that extra incident. Everything's fine early on in the race when you got 16 free incidents to get, and you'll just run wide and take them. But then as you get 20 minutes to go, you start realizing, ooh, I only have a few more of these. I got to start slowing it down and being more mindful of them. I know at some point I said something to Larry about having, in TeamSpeak, I said something about as I wiggle off that last turn, having too many incidences, getting close to disqualified, and Larry says, oh, I haven't even been paying attention, but I know I have a lot. I guess I better start looking to see how many I have left. So sometimes you're just running your race and you even forget about it. Oh! Couldn't really tell what happened there. Huge lockup from Paul trying to go around Greg there. Again, multi-class, it's a give and take type thing, so I didn't see what happened there. The shot was too close. Here I come down the inside. I saw myself in the mirror, now I don't... There I go. Oh, and we cut to someone else. Yeah, that's a good shot of those orange pyramid curbs that you do not want to hit. Those things, they wreck the fenders on the car and the side skirts and wherever else you hit them. The backstretch at Circuit of the Americas, not exactly straight, and some elevation change to it. Makes for some cool shots. So Joel's only he's only made about half a second here so far since we last checked in on him. He was at 40 and now he's 39 and a half. Now Greg has made his stop and Chris is only 12 seconds ahead, so that is not enough time to come down pit lane, make your stop and get out. So Greg stands to pick up a position from Chris when Chris does stop. Saw me flashing my lights, the flash to pass. I don't know if that actually works. I know for me, I'm rarely even looking in the mirror when I'm racing. I just kind of pay attention to the relative to see that there's a faster car coming. I don't think I even look in the mirror to see if they're actually flashing their lights at me. But sometimes I remember to hit that button. If anything, it looks cool in the replay. Now, I made it on pit lane, made my stop and got off in 38.8 seconds. And that's about the gap that Joel has to Aaron. I don't know how long the pit stops are in the GTE cars. But if they're similar, this will be close, close race off pit road. Oh, whoa it down, Larry, whoa. And you can just see here's a situation where there's just, Chris messed up that turn. He apologized for that, there's no worries. But there was just no way to get around him there. It cost me 5 seconds, I believe, was the loss according to my time delta when I was looking at it during the race. But as I wasn't really in a position to race with Paul, I wasn't too worried. I was just biding my time behind him, playing it safe. 16 minutes ago, I'm trying not to get any more incidences because I was getting real close on him. I have been DQ'd here in a GT3 race in the Lone Star Sports Car Series. And those are only 45-minute races, and we got to go an hour. Another shot of the aluminum Falcon with almost a 30-second lead now at this point. We need more P1 drivers to come keep Paul company. So I'm not sure if I talked about it at the beginning of the replay, but I use a cool little tool written by another iRacing member called the iRacing Replay Director. And it basically takes your replay, analyzes it, and then picks the camera shots and picks the battles to focus on. Really keeps me from having to do it myself. I'm no Amjad, I'm not good at deciding what to pick and look at, and just makes my workload a lot easier to have a program to pick these camera shots out for me. So sometimes if we're kind of watching something weird or it changes shots frequently, sometimes that happens. I haven't gone full retard at the keyboard. That's just the replay director sometimes acting a little funky. Oh, I'm really embarrassing myself here trying to drive this car. Oh, Larry's hit pit road here. Which I would suspect means that we're getting down here to the end of the race. Aaron and Chris should be making their stops relatively soon as well. I believe talking to Larry in TeamSpeak during the race, he said he picked this moment to pit. He could have gone a little bit longer, but he picked this moment to pit, planning on coming out behind some P1 traffic. I know the speed at which the P1 cars catch these guys and get around them can catch you off guard at times if you're not expecting it. And I know Larry said he was looking at his relatives, saw somebody was coming up to pass him, and instead of waiting for that moment to get past, he decided to just go ahead and make a pit stop, let them go by him while he's on pit lane, and then he'll come back out outside of traffic. So that's another reason I like waiting to make my stop, because sometimes you can do that. You can kind of play with traffic and come out during a time more opportune for yourself. So another thing you'll notice at the top, it says laps remaining. That changes depending on the car that it's focused on. It is calculating approximately how many more laps it believes that that car that's being focused on has to go. So they're showing, well, here they're showing the GTE cars with 6.5 laps to go. And then when they go back to Paul, I think it showed like 7.5 laps. And that's because in 12 minutes, Paul is going to run an extra lap than the GTE cars. So don't be confused when you see that. The only constant here is time remaining. It's a 60-minute race. It starts ticking down when the race went green. And we're going to run at least 60 minutes, probably a little more, because we don't want to end the race at 59.5. So it looks like just Aaron and Chris left to stop in the GTE cars. I know we talked about it a little bit. I use fuel numbers from the official series, and I think what we're going to do for the next race in 2 weeks at Le Mans, we're going to lower by 5%. There's Aaron making his stop. We're going to lower by 5% the fuel that the GTE cars hold to. I'm afraid someone being able to fuel map and run the whole race without stopping. Don't know how well that would play out as far as positioning, whether they could pull off a win doing that strategy, but want to make sure they're making a stop. So going to lower the amount of fuel allowed per race by 5% to see if I can force a stop just a little bit sooner for them. And there's Larry being real careful here 10 minutes to go not to pick up any more incidences. Almost coming to a stop there in turn 11 on the exit of 11 to make sure he didn't run off track. Now if you can slow down to under 30 miles an hour, it won't give you an incident for going off track. So sometimes when you don't want to pick one up but you know you're heading off track, sometimes it's a panic brake situation to try to get the car woed down and stopped. At least woed down to under 30 before you go off track. That way you don't pick up that incident. And so Aaron's come out of pits, and he is 11.5 seconds ahead of Joel. So I'm not sure if Joel took tires or not. He may have, because I'm not sure why else there would be that big of a gap between them. So we'll see if Joel did take tires. If Joel did take tires, we'll see if that strategy plays off for him. I'm looking at Aaron. It shows that he was in the box for 10.2 seconds. And then you guys can't see it, but on my extra screen here, it shows Joel was 18.9. So I would suspect that means Joel took tires. So we'll see if fresh tires can do anything for 9 minutes left in the race. So 8 minutes, about 5 laps for the GTE cars. Joel's still about 9.5 seconds back. So 7 minutes ago, and it's still showing Chris still hasn't made a stop. So we'll definitely have to adjust that for Le Mans and see if we can have these GT cars pit just a little bit sooner than what they're capable of. As this is Chris coming in to make his stop now. 6.5 minutes left in the race. I think he said in TeamSpeak that during the race that he maybe could have mapped it to make it the whole way, but he doesn't know how well that strategy would have played out for him. Looks like Joel is so far ahead of Larry, he's not popping up there in that relative box. See, Paul's closing in though. I know that's Larry's favorite moment when a P1 car is going by him. Now this is a hard turn for me to see because the A-pillar in these cars is so thick, you can't see around it. And the apexes are just difficult to see already at COTA, coupled with the sightlines in these cars. Makes it a little bit of a chore, especially when you go offline. When you're online, you've practiced and you know about where you want to turn in. When you go offline, it's a little more of a guessing game. At this point in the race, I was just taking my time. I knew Aaron and Joel were in a battle here. I think Aaron's waiting for me to pass. He actually is slowing down. I feel a little bad for that. He's slowing down to let me go. But I was purposely hanging back, trying to basically signal to him that I had no intention of going around him until the straight. Which is why I purposely didn't close up on him through that stadium section. So Aaron, if you're watching, sorry about that. And here you see I've gone around him here on the straightaway. And that was my intention there. I suppose I could have said something over the radio. In multi-class, though, car positioning will say a lot about what your intentions are. If you're trying to get around a slower car, usually what you'll do, especially as you're coming down the straightaway, you'll move over to show them that your intention is to go around him. Or you'll favor a side to try to let them know, hey, after this turn, I'm going to go to this side of you. In my case, I was holding back and not closing up to try to signal to him that, hey, I'm not pressuring you. But he's still got 10 seconds on Joel, so... This is on board with Chris. I'm not sure if that... We saw that curb strike earlier damage his right front fender. I don't know if he's hit another one or if that was from the initial curb strike. I think at this point in the race, 2.5 minutes ago, I was at 16 incidences. That's as many as you can get. Any more than that, and you're disqualified. I would still finish where I'm at. You get to keep all the laps you've done. You just quit being scored at that point. Oh, it looks like the replay director missed it. I'm coming down pit road here. You can see the damage on the left front. Through the stadium section, I was busy trying to talk to Larry in TeamSpeak, and I didn't look. But the car all of a sudden just whipped around on me, and I ran into the Tech Pro barriers after doing a 180 and sliding off into the grass. So I don't know if the battery had depleted itself or if I had fully used my energy for that lap. But that's what it felt like, because all of a sudden the rears, it oversteered a lot, and it felt like I didn't have the power coming off the turn with the front wheels pulling, and the car just came around on me, caught me off guard, and as fast as these P1 cars are, away I went. That was too bad the replay director missed out on that, but I came down pit road, came in the box, and I had something like 20 minutes of required repairs with 1.5 minutes left in the race, so my race is ended right there. So Joel has not been able to close that gap up. You can see he actually ran 0.8 slower than Aaron that previous lap. And with coming to white flag, not looking like he's going to make it. Here's Paul. This should be coming to the checkered. It says last lap here, so we'll take JRT's word for it. The timing app is JRT that I'm using here to do the overlays. And does it look like are we going to show Paul winning? Yep, there it is, there he is. He's the celebratory weave back and forth as Paul takes a checkered, won the inaugural race for the Maverick Cup. I took P2 in pit lane, and Burke would have finished P3 also, well, from the garage. He had retired at this point. Focused on Larry here in P3. Not sure, is he a lap behind these other GTE cars? Looks like it. Looks like Larry will be coming to the line here. Finishes P3 there, so there's Aaron. Aaron's still running. Still with that 10-second gap over Joel. And to the line he comes. Nice win. Celebrate there, Aaron. Nice win. Here's Joel for P2. That will round out the podium for the GTE series, or GTE class. And Chris taking it home, P4. Good job, gentlemen. See you guys on Friday night for the Lone Star Sports Car Series GT3 cars at Laguna Seca. And again, this series will return in 2 weeks at Le Mans. Hopefully a few more of you out there decide to join us.